There is something I want to talk about that, in my experience, I got to see physically, go there and see it. And what I'm talking about is the giant rock. It's in Landers, California, and you can read all about it if you want to Google it. Just Google giant rock or giant rock splits. Or you can also look into the Intregraton, which is also in Landers, California, pretty close to where the giant rock is. And you can read all about the history of the UFO activity, and George Van Tassel, and all of this information is just readily available out there. But I just want to tell you my experience there. Well, I went there and in my van, and I camped out right there by the rock and spent the night there. There was no real unusual occurrence. It was just fun to be doing this, to be in the desert at night and sleep out under the stars. It's really a nice thing to do. A lot of people go there that have these little dune buggy looking things that they like to run them real fast over the riveted kind of sand roads that are like corduroy, and it gives them a real fun ride. And a lot of people go up there and they like to just be present around this rock because of its history. It is a very giant freestanding rock, and there is a prophecy that is connected with this rock. It's an old Indian, ancient Indian, I don't know their names, but it's an ancient prophecy concerning the end of time and this rock. Because this rock, it was prophesied, would split toward the time of the end of time. In other words, when Mother Earth makes its transition into another dimension, which many people think she's transitioning even now. But the severity of it to the people on the earth at the time that she makes this transition was to be seen by how the rock would split. It was prophesied it would split close to that time when we're going to make this big shift. And it did split just a few years ago, and it was just a little portion off of the edge of the rock that broke open. And here's a picture you can see of that. And it could have split right down the middle, and that would have been more dire of a message. It would be like, oh, the birth of the shift and all that will be like a cesarean birth, and have to break the rock open right down the middle to emerge, which would maybe mean things like earthquakes that were very severe and stuff like that. That's how I saw it. But the fact that it broke open and it just was a little cut off the edge shows me, I think, that our transition into a new dimension will be easy, a lot easier than what some have anticipated. There's a lot of doom and gloomers out there who like to talk about that we're all going to be destroyed, especially come the year 2012. We're just going to be maybe cast off of the earth, like the poles will shift and we'll be no more. All the catechisms and stuff. But now this rock to me is evidence that that is not going to be the case. Maybe it was a possibility at one time, but it's not a possibility anymore, because there are enough of us on the path to wanting to awaken ourselves and learn to love others unconditionally, and to respect and love all the traditions and all the people who have faith in different ideas. We can merge them and find the good in them and not be judgmental of other people who think a little different than we do. And it's so interesting that so many of the indigenous peoples of the world also have real similar thoughts about the end of time, or the end of time as we know it. That's what I like to say. I don't think the world will end in 2012, but maybe the way we experience time is what's going to be the big shift. Anyway, I just thought you might enjoy seeing the picture of this rock. And I did go up there one time and did ceremony with some people who made a labyrinth and we walked the labyrinth and beat our drums. And we did this right behind the big rock. There's a crystal hillside. All the hill is made of kind of a pinkish white crystal. And we called it Crystal Hill. I picked up several of the little crystallized rocks there and brought them home with me. But it was fun to be up there and do something ceremony-like with others. It was the first time I had ever done anything like that. Anyway, maybe someday I'll go to the giant rock again. Maybe I'll find some people who want to go with me to the giant rock. From where I live, it's only about a 2 or 3 hour drive. I live in Temecula, California. Anyway, I just wanted to give you this little bit of information about this giant rock. You might want to do some Google searches and find out even more about it. It has quite a history, let me tell you. And so does the Intregraton, built by George Van Tassel, have a history connected with our UFO brothers, of whom I believe that they exist. I used to have a neighbor who went up in the spacecraft of people or beings from, he called them people from Pluto and Jupiter. Anyway, he wrote it all down, and it was published in a book that you don't find real often, although I have that book typed up, and I can give it to anyone. It's called A Call at Dawn, about Kelvin Rowe and his experiences in talking to beings from other planets who visited him even in his own home, which it happens to be. I lived in a mobile home park which was across the street from the home that Kelvin Rowe lived in. And when I found out about him being a neighbor of mine, and this is so funny, I found out online from someone I didn't even know. And they told me about how there was a person in the city I lived in that had experience with UFOs. And I looked up his address, and lo and behold, he was sort of a neighbor of mine. The trailer park I lived in was across the street from his home. And when I went to meet him, this was the sad part, he was dying of cancer. And he was so far into the cancer that he couldn't talk. And so I didn't get to personally talk to him. But I did become friends with his family. And I did manage to learn a lot about him from them. And they loaned me the book, and I typed it all up. It is very interesting what these beings from other planets told him. It sounds so much like metaphysical things that we already have been hearing people talk about, that these space visitors were telling him, and he wasn't someone who was all that into this kind of subject matter. It's a very interesting book. Anyway, if anyone is interested, I could send them that book in a typed way. I've typed it up, and it's on my Google documents. But when I know a person's email address, I can authorize them to read it. So if anyone's interested, I need to know your email address if you would like to read that book. So I'm just going to let you know that this to me is hopeful. I don't have a whole lot of fear about the future. I see that it's going to be really wonderful because we're going to make it wonderful. And this is just another evidence, a physical evidence, and a prophecy that was given by an ancient Indian group of people who saw this rock as a very sacred place. And I'm so happy that it's a place that's close enough to me that I can go there every now and then. So long from the Dove Lady, over and out. Bye-bye.